The failing healers. The alien medical hall was silent. Only the sound of weak breathing filled the wide silver room. On the shining bed lay a fragile alien girl, her skin pale blue and her pulse so faint that even the monitors could not catch it clearly. Tall healers with glowing robes stood around her, their long fingers moving across panels of light, trying once again to force life back into her failing body. But with each attempt, the glow from their machines grew weaker, and their eyes showed the truth. They no longer believed she could live. One healer shook his head slowly, his voice heavy with finality. Her body has given up. No medicine of ours can save her. Another turned away, lowering his tools. We must accept this loss. Her spirit will soon return to the stars. The others bowed in agreement, their long faces calm but cold, as if they had already moved beyond caring. The alien girl's chest rose with effort, a sound like a broken whisper escaping her lips. She was fighting, but the fight was slipping away. In the corner of the hall, a man in simple soldier's uniform stood silently. He was human, a stranger among the tall healers, his presence already unwanted in this place. But his eyes never left the girl, his fists clenched tightly at his side, his jaw stiff with anger. He dared not speak aloud. He had seen death on battlefields, but this was different. This was not a warrior's death, it was abandonment. The healers began to leave the room one by one, their robes trailing, their voices quiet. To them, the case was over, their time too precious to waste on a hopeless body. The girl lay alone now, her breathing shallow, her small hands twitching as if trying to grasp something unseen. Her eyes flickered open for a moment, glowing faintly, and in that second they met the human's gaze. He felt the weight of that look strike deep inside him. She was not ready to die, not yet. Even with her weak body, even with her people giving up, she still wanted to hold on. And in that instant the soldier knew what he had to do. He stepped closer, his boots echoing against the metallic floor. One healer turned back sharply, his face stern. You cannot touch her, human. You will only make her suffering worse. But the soldier's voice was calm, and yet firm like steel. If you will not help her, then let me try. The healers laughed, their tones almost cruel. You? With your crude human ways? Her blood is not like yours. Her body cannot be saved by your hands. The soldier ignored their mockery, his eyes fixed only on the girl. He could see tears gathering in the corners of her eyes, too weak to fall. She was scared, abandoned, and in pain. He reached forward slowly, his hand hovering near hers, as if asking for permission. Her fingers, trembling and thin, lifted just enough to brush against his skin. The faintest touch, yet it was a plea, a silent cry not to leave her alone. The soldier bent down, whispering softly, I will not let you go, not while I can still fight for you. The healers scoffed and turned away, their footsteps echoing out of the hall, leaving man and girl in silence. He lifted her carefully, his arms strong but gentle, her fragile form feeling weightless in his grasp. Her head rested weakly against his chest, her breath shallow but still present. For the first time since entering the alien world, the soldier felt fear, not fear of enemies, but fear of losing this small life in his arms. He whispered again, Hold on, little one, hold on just a bit longer. The halls of the medical dome stretched before him, glowing lights flickering as he moved quickly. Guards and attendants stared in shock, some shouting warnings, others too stunned to stop him. Where are you taking her? A voice demanded, but the soldier did not slow, his eyes set on the doors that led to the dark streets outside. Every step echoed with determination, with defiance against the words hopeless and lost. The alien girl stirred faintly, her lips parting as if to speak. A broken whisper escaped her throat. Why? Why are you helping me? The soldier tightened his hold, his voice quiet but steady. Because no life is worthless, not yours, not anyone's. Her eyes, half closed, glimmered faintly with something between disbelief and hope. Outside, the night air was cold, the alien moon casting a pale glow over the streets. The soldier stopped for a moment, breathing hard, looking at the fragile being in his arms. He knew nothing about her biology, nothing about her world's medicine, and yet he knew one truth. He could not allow her to die forgotten. He would fight for her survival with every breath he had. even if the entire galaxy called him a fool. As he stepped into the darkness beyond the city lights, the weight of the unknown pressed down on him. But he felt her heartbeat against his chest, faint yet stubborn, and it filled him with strength. The healers had abandoned her, but he had not. And that was where the story truly began. The soldier's choice. The streets were empty under the pale alien moon. The soldier carried the fragile girl close to his chest. Her skin felt cold as ice, and her breaths came slow. Every step echoed in the silent city, the tall crystal towers shining faintly, watching like silent judges as he moved through forbidden paths. Behind him, voices rose. The guards had finally realized what he had done. They shouted warnings, their boots striking the ground in pursuit. But the human did not stop. He knew if he stopped now, she would die before morning. The girl stirred weakly, her lips parting with effort. "You should not do this." Her voice was nothing more than a broken whisper. He looked down, tightening his hold, his eyes burning with defiance. "I will not let you go, not while you still fight to live." She blinked slowly, confusion in her gaze. She had grown used to her own people turning away, but this human was different. The warmth of his words pressed against the cold fear in her chest, and for the first time in many days, she let her eyes close with a hint of peace. The soldier turned down a narrow street, ducking into shadows as searchlights cut across the city walls. He pressed his back against a metallic pillar, waiting as alien patrols passed, their strange weapons humming with energy. He knew they would call him reckless, they would call him mad, but he could not let them take her back to that lifeless bed. He whispered under his breath, "Sometimes madness is the only way to save someone." Far beyond the city gates, an old transport waited, a battered craft he had borrowed from a friend, its engines weak but still alive. He reached it breathless, setting the girl down gently for a moment while he unlocked the hatch. Her eyes opened again, faint light glowing within. "Why, human, why risk yourself for me?" He paused, kneeling close, his voice firm. "Because no healer should decide when your story ends, only you can." He carried her inside the transport, laying her on a simple cot, the hum of the engines filling the small cabin. As the ship rose into the sky, alarms blared in the city behind him, glowing lights flashing as alien ships prepared to give chase. He gripped the controls with one hand, the other never far from her side. "Hold on," he whispered. "I will not let them take you." The stars spread out before them, endless and cold, but also filled with the promise of escape. The chase began, alien patrol crafts darting like angry insects through the void. The soldier pushed the transport harder than it was meant to fly, the engines screaming, shaking, every warning light flashing red. But still he flew, weaving through asteroid fragments and debris clouds, refusing to slow down. Each second was a gamble. Each second could be their last. But behind him on the cot the girl still breathed, and that was reason enough to continue. Inside the cabin, her voice returned, faint but insistent. "Why fight for me, when even my own people did not?" The soldier's eyes narrowed, his voice steady as he twisted the ship through danger. "Because humans do not surrender life so easily. We fight, even when the universe tells us not to." She stared at him, weak tears forming in her eyes, not of pain this time, but of something she had not felt before, hope. Her fingers brushed against the thin blanket he had placed over her, clutching it like a lifeline. Hours passed, the chase finally fading as the transport slipped into the dark silence between stars. The soldier exhaled, his body trembling with exhaustion, but his spirit still strong. He looked back at her, her breathing shallow but steadier than before, her eyes closed yet no longer fading. Something inside him shifted. He realized he was no longer just saving her. He was carrying a promise he could not break. The ship drifted toward an outpost planet on the edge of known space, a place where alien laws could not easily reach. Here, he thought, he would find a way, he would try everything human, every method, every bit of care, even if it meant failing 1,000 times. He carried her down the ramp when they landed, the night air sharp and filled with strange scents, his boots crunching against the dusty soil. In the distance, faint lights of a human camp glowed. Exiles, traders, and wanderers, people who asked no questions. He stepped into the camp, the girl wrapped in a blanket now, Eyes turned toward him, questioning, suspicious, but when they saw her weak form, the whispers began. Is she alien? Why carry her? Why risk yourself? The voices asked. The soldier ignored them, moving straight toward the small medic tent at the edge of the camp. Inside, an old human medic looked up, startled by the sight of the pale blue girl in the soldier's arms. The medic frowned. You know what this means? If her people find her here, they will come for all of us. The soldier placed her carefully on the table, his voice like stone. Then let them come, but first we will save her. The medic looked into his eyes, and something in that gaze silenced all doubts. The girl's hand twitched, searching, and the soldier quickly took it in his own. Her weak fingers curled around his, holding tightly, refusing to let go. The old medic sighed, shaking his head. You humans are stubborn, always chasing lost causes. The soldier looked down at her with quiet determination. Sometimes lost causes are the ones worth saving most. And as the night deepened around them, the human soldier made his choice clear. He would stand against a galaxy if needed. He would fight law, distance, and even death itself. Because in his arms was a life no one else believed in, and he would not let her go. The healers had given up, but the human had only just begun. The journey of hope. The outpost was quiet at dawn, thin lights spilling across the desert ground. The soldier sat beside the alien girl, his back against the rough walls of the medic tent. She lay on a simple cot, her breathing uneven but stronger than before, her pale skin no longer as dim as when he had first carried her away from the healers. The old medic had done what little he could with human supplies, giving warmth, water, and herbs from Earth that no alien would have considered medicine. The soldier kept watch through the night, his eyes never leaving her face, afraid that if he blinked too long she might slip away. When the girl stirred, her fingers twitched against the blanket, her eyelids heavy but opening. She whispered softly, her voice like cracked glass. Why? Why are you still here? The soldier leaned forward, his voice steady but gentle. Because you are still breathing, and while you breathe, I stay. She blinked slowly, her eyes uncertain. She had lived in a world where weakness meant abandonment, and yet this strange human refused to walk away. Outside the tent, murmurs spread through the camp. Traders and wanderers spoke in low voices. Why save her? One asked. She is alien. Her kind would never do the same for us. Another muttered. If her people come here, they will bring war. We should turn her out before it is too late. But no one dared speak such words to the soldier's face, for there was fire in his eyes that made even hardened men step back. As night fell again, the soldier carried her outside for the first time, wrapping her gently in a thick human cloak. They sat under the strange stars of the outpost world, the air sharp and dry. The girl looked up weakly, the light of distant suns reflected in her tired eyes. Your people fight wars. Why do you risk peace for me? He looked upward as well, his voice quiet but firm. Because sometimes the smallest life is the biggest reason to fight. The silence between them was filled with something unspoken, something fragile yet powerful. She coughed, struggling to sit, and he steadied her carefully, his hands steady as stone. Her head rested briefly against his shoulder, her words broken. If I die, your effort wasted. The soldier shook his head, his tone sharp with conviction. No life I fight for is wasted, not even if it ends too soon. But danger was never far. Beyond the outpost the alien patrols searched, their ships moving like shadows across the skies. The healers had reported his defiance, and the elders had marked him as a thief of life. One evening, the sound of engines roared across the camp, scouts rushing back in fear. They are coming, the voices cried. Her people are coming. The soldier stood tall, lifting his rifle, though his heart was heavy. He could not fight a whole fleet, not while protecting her. He rushed back into the tent. The girl's eyes widened with fear as she saw his urgency. Your people are here, he said, his voice steady despite the storm outside. They want you back, not to heal you, but to bury you. She trembled, her hand clutching the blanket. Then, leave me, save yourself. The soldier's jaw tightened, his voice like iron. I did not steal you from death only to hand you back to it. He lifted her again, her weak form pressing against his chest, and carried her toward the hidden back path of the camp. The old medic ran after him, pressing a small bundle of herbs and tools into his hand. This is all I can give. It may help her, or it may do nothing, but it is hope. The soldier nodded once, his eyes fierce. Hope is enough. Then he disappeared into the wild night, leaving behind the shouts of panic and the glare of approaching alien searchlights. The outpost desert stretched wide and merciless, cold winds whipping sand into their faces. The soldier moved quickly, his boots crunching against stone, the girl's breaths faint but present against his chest. Each step was heavy, but each step was also defiance, proof that he refused to surrender her life. Above them, the alien ships scanned the ground with harsh beams of light. Hunting, always hunting. Hours later, he found a cave hidden in the cliffs, a dark hollow where the patrols would not easily search. He laid her down gently, wrapping the cloak tighter around her small frame. She looked at him with tired eyes, her voice a whisper. Why do you not fear them? He sat beside her, his rifle across his knees, his voice low but sure. Because my fear is nothing compared to losing you. The night passed slowly, each hour marked by the sound of engines in the distance, each minute stretched by uncertainty. But the girl survived the night, her breathing steadier, her pulse faint yet stubborn. The soldier fed her drops of water, ground herbs into paste, and pressed them gently against her lips. She swallowed, her eyes closing, her weak voice murmuring, "You give me strength." He watched her sleep, exhaustion pressing at his own bones, yet he refused to close his eyes. The cave walls seemed to echo with silence, the desert outside alive with threats. Still, in the small space between them, there was a fragile spark of life that had refused to die. And the soldier knew that as long as that spark remained, his journey of hope would continue. The healers had abandoned her, the elders had condemned her, but here, hidden in a desert cave, she was still alive. And in the human soldier's heart, a vow had taken root, unshakable and eternal. No matter how far he had to run, no matter how many enemies chased him, he would not let her go. For where others saw hopelessness, he saw a life worth saving, and that truth gave him strength to defy the stars themselves. The human way. The cave was silent. Only the faint crackle of a small fire gave warmth against the freezing desert winds. The soldier sat close to the alien girl, watching her fragile breaths rise and fall under the thick cloak. Her skin was still pale, her body still weak, but there was something different now. Her breathing no longer sounded like surrender, it sounded like survival. For the first time since he had carried her away from the healers, the soldier allowed himself a thin smile. Morning came slowly, sunlight spilling across the cliffs. The soldier crushed the herbs given by the old medic into a small bowl, mixing them with water from his canteen. The smell was sharp and bitter, but he leaned close to her, holding the mixture to her lips. She stirred, her eyes heavy, her voice a whisper. "What is this?" He answered softly. "Not your medicine, not alien science, just human care. Something simple, something real." She hesitated, but when he pressed the rim gently against her lips, she swallowed, the taste bitter yet warming her throat. A small cough escaped her chest, and then, for the first time, a little color returned to her face. The soldier's heart lifted, a quiet victory against the impossible. He spoke softly. "Sometimes healing is not about machines. Sometimes it is about patience, warmth, and refusing to let go." Days passed in the cave, the soldier making small fires, gathering desert roots, and telling her stories of Earth to keep her mind alive. She listened with weak but growing interest as he described oceans, forests, and skies filled with birds instead of warships. Her lips trembled into the faintest smile. "Your world, it sounds too beautiful to be real." He looked at her with quiet certainty. "It is real, and so are you. One day, you will see it with your own eyes." But their peace was fragile. Danger still circled like wolves in the night. Alien patrols continued to sweep the desert, their voices echoing in the distance, their searchlights cutting across the cliffs. The soldier stayed awake, his rifle always near, his body exhausted but his spirit unbroken. He knew the chase was not over, but each extra day she lived was proof that his defiance had meaning. One night, as the fire burned low, the girl looked at him with weary eyes. Her voice was weak but filled with curiosity. "Why do humans fight for those who are not their own?" The soldier looked into the flames, his face hardened by memory. Because life is not about whose blood runs in your veins. It is about the choice to protect what is fragile, even when others walk away. She studied him quietly, her hand trembling as she reached for his, and he let her cold fingers rest in his strong palm. Her strength grew little by little, enough that she could sit up against the cave wall. The soldier brought her food, small pieces of roasted root, warmed by the fire. She tasted it with hesitation, then nodded faintly, her voice almost surprised. It is not our medicine, but it gives me strength. He smiled, a rare softness in his battle-scarred face. That is the human way. Sometimes small things keep you alive when grand miracles fail. But their fragile progress could not stay hidden forever. One evening, while he was gathering wood, a shadow appeared at the mouth of the cave. The soldier froze, his hand going to his rifle. A tall alien stood there, cloaked in silver armor, his voice sharp. You have stolen what was already lost. Return her, human, before you bring ruin upon us all. The girl gasped, her weak voice rising. No, he saved me. The soldier stepped forward, rifle steady, his voice calm but fierce. She is alive because I refuse to give up. If you want her, you will have to take her from me. The armored alien hesitated, his eyes narrowing. You defy the elders, you defy her fate. You will be hunted to the edge of the stars for this. The soldier's jaw tightened, his words like stone. Then let them hunt, but I will not let her go. The standoff hung heavy in the air, the alien's weapon glowing faintly, the soldier's finger brushing the trigger of his rifle. But in that tense silence, the girl spoke again, her voice trembling yet filled with new fire. He gave me life when you all gave me death. I choose to stay. The armored alien stared at her, his expression shaken, as if he could not believe she had the strength to speak. After a long pause, he lowered his weapon slowly, muttering darkly, You will regret this, both of you, before vanishing back into the night. The soldier exhaled, lowering his rifle, his body tense but his spirit unshaken. He turned back to her, her face pale but determined, her eyes glowing faintly with a light he had not seen before. He knelt beside her, his voice softer now. You fought for yourself just now. That is the first step to truly living again. She leaned against him, her tired whisper carrying more strength than ever. I fight, because you taught me how. As the firelight danced against the cave walls, the soldier realized something deeper than survival was taking place. This was not only about saving her body, it was about awakening her spirit, giving her back the will to live when her own people had stolen it away. And he knew then that the human way was not only stubbornness, not only defiance. It was the power to give hope where none remained, and that was a force stronger than any healer's hand. Between life and death, the desert night was colder than before. Winds howled through the cliffs like whispers of doom. Inside the cave, the soldier sat awake, his rifle across his knees, but his eyes were fixed on the girl lying beneath the heavy cloak. Her breathing, once steady, had grown ragged again, her chest rising unevenly as if every breath was a battle. The soldier leaned closer, worry cutting into his heart. He had seen this before on battlefields, the moment when life hangs by the thinnest thread. Her lips moved, whispering words too faint to hear, her skin pale as frost, her pulse barely there. The soldier's throat tightened. He shook her shoulder gently. Stay with me. Do not leave now. Her eyes flickered open, glowing faintly, but then rolled back as her body went still. A wave of fear crashed through him, a kind of fear even war had never given him, the fear of losing a life he had sworn to protect. He pressed his ear to her chest. Silence. No breath, no beat. For a heartbeat he froze, his mind shouting that this was the end, that all his defiance had been for nothing. But then he roared, shaking his head, slamming his fists against the ground. No, not like this. He leaned over her, his hands moving instinctively, pressing against her chest, forcing air into her lungs. Breathe, he demanded, his voice breaking. You will not die, not while I still fight. He pushed again and again, the cave echoing with his desperate struggle. His hands trembled, his body strained, but he refused to stop, sweat and tears mixing on his face. Minutes felt like hours, the silence of the cave pressing down like a grave. Then, a sound, weak, broken, but real, a gasp, a desperate inhale. Her chest rose suddenly, her lips parting as life rushed back into her fragile body. The soldier froze, then let out a shaking breath, relief flooding him like fire after ice. He cradled her gently, whispering, "That's it, come back to me, do not let go." Her eyes opened slowly, confusion flickering there, her voice trembling. "Why? Why do you fight so hard for me?" His hand brushed her damp hair from her face, his voice low and fierce. "Because every life deserves someone who refuses to give up, and I choose to be that someone for you." She stared at him weakly, tears forming at the corners of her eyes, not from pain, but from something deeper. For the first time, she realized he was not only saving her body, he was saving her soul. Hours passed, the soldier holding her hand, refusing to let go even for a moment. He fed her drops of water, whispered stories to keep her awake, told her about the humans who survived impossible odds because they refused to surrender. She listened with fading strength, but each story planted a spark inside her, a spark that whispered, "If they can survive, so can I." The fire in the cave burned low, but between them, a brighter fire had begun to grow. But danger pressed closer. The sound of alien ships rumbled across the skies outside, their search patterns tightening. The soldier knew their time in the cave was ending. If they stayed, they would be found, and if they were found, she would be taken from him. He clenched his jaw, his decision heavy but unshakable. "We move tomorrow, no matter what." The girl weakly shook her head, her voice trembling. I cannot. I will slow you down." The soldier leaned close, his eyes sharp with unyielding fire. "You are not a burden. You are the reason I keep moving." Her lips trembled, her gaze softening as she whispered, "You are strange, human, strange, but kind." He gave a faint smile, though his heart was heavy. Strange is sometimes what saves lives. Her hand squeezed his weakly, but it was enough to promise she would fight with him, not against him. As dawn broke, he prepared their supplies, wrapping her carefully in the cloak, his rifle slung across his back. He carried her once again, her weight nothing compared to the weight of his promise. Each step out of the cave was a defiance against the elders, against the healers, against death itself. She rested against his chest, whispering faintly, "If I die, remember I was not alone." His throat tightened, his voice sharp with resolve. "You will not die, not while I stand, not while I breathe." The desert stretched ahead, endless and merciless, but the soldier walked forward without hesitation. Above them the alien ships circled like vultures, scanning, searching, always watching. But he carried her onward, refusing to bend, refusing to break. For in his heart he knew the truth, that life is not saved by machines or laws, but by the refusal to surrender hope. And as long as he had hope, as long as she had even one breath left, the fight between life and death was not yet lost. He would walk through deserts, fight against armies, even tear the stars themselves apart if it meant keeping her alive. Because in her fragile heartbeat, he had found something stronger than war. He had found purpose. The miracle change. The desert winds howled across the barren land, but inside the small shelter he had built from stone and cloth, there was warmth. The alien girl lay on a rough cot, her breaths no longer shallow gasps but steady, slow, and alive. The soldier sat beside her, exhaustion heavy in his bones, yet his heart lighter than it had been in many days. She had survived the night. She had clung to life when even the stars seemed to have turned against her. Days passed, and little by little, strength returned to her frail body. Her hands, once too weak to even lift, now trembled as they reached for food. The soldier guided her gently, offering small pieces of roasted roots, drops of water flavored with crushed herbs. She ate slowly, but when she swallowed without pain, his lips curved into a smile, a rare and quiet victory. She whispered one morning, her voice soft but clearer, "You fight for me every day, but why, when I was nothing to my own people?" The soldier looked at her with eyes steady as steel. "Because no one is nothing, you deserve a chance, even if the galaxy denies you." Her eyes shimmered, not only with weakness but with emotion she had never known, being wanted, being fought for. And in that fragile moment, she believed she might truly live again. The outpost around them began to whisper of the impossible. Traders and wanderers came in secret, curious to see the alien girl who had been abandoned by healers yet still lived. They peered into the tent, their eyes wide, some in awe, some in disbelief. She was dying, one muttered, and yet the human's strange ways keep her alive. Hope spread quietly among those who had seen too much death. If one fragile life could rise again, maybe others too could be saved, not by machines, but by care, by defiance, by heart. The soldier ignored their whispers, but he saw the change in their eyes, a flicker of respect where before there had been doubt. He had not only saved her, he had challenged the belief that some lives were too far gone. The girl's strength grew. She sat up longer each day, her voice no longer a broken whisper, but soft words that carried feeling. She asked him about Earth again, her eyes wide like a child hearing of wonders. He told her of green forests, oceans with no end, skies filled with birds instead of warships. She closed her eyes, imagining it, a faint smile on her lips. One day, I want to see it. But news of her survival reached farther than the camp. Across the stars, her people whispered of the girl who should have died, yet did not. The elders grew uneasy, the healers defensive, for if she lived, their failure would be exposed. And so they sent envoys, not to help, but to demand her return, to silence the living proof of their defeat. One evening, a group of aliens arrived at the outpost, cloaked in silver and gold, their voices sharp. "This girl belongs to us," they declared. "She is a burden, a shame to our people, and she must be taken back." The soldier stood before them, his body unyielding, his rifle slung but ready. "She belongs to no one. She has the right to live." The envoy sneered. "You humans are reckless, always trying to change what must not be changed." But before the soldier could answer, the girl herself spoke, her voice trembling but filled with new fire. "I was left to die, but he gave me life. I will not return to those who abandoned me." The aliens stared, their eyes wide, for the weak child they had given up on now stood, her voice steady, her choice clear. And in that moment, even they could not deny the impossible truth. She lived, and she chose humanity over despair. The envoys left with angry promises, but their steps were heavy with shame. The outpost watched in silence, then slowly broke into murmurs of awe. The soldier turned to her, his voice low but proud. "You fought for yourself just now, and that is the greatest strength of all." Her hand found his, gripping tighter than ever before, her eyes glowing faintly with new life. From that day, she walked a few steps each morning, leaning on him, her body weak but her spirit blazing. Each step was a victory, each breath proof that the impossible could be defied. The people of the camp watched and whispered, their respect for the human soldier turning into something more, belief. Belief that hope itself could heal when all else failed. The soldier knew their fight was not over. The elders would not rest until they erased this miracle. But he also knew the truth, that no fleet, no healer, no elder could undo what had already been done. She was alive, she was healing, and she was no longer afraid. The galaxy had witnessed a miracle, and that miracle had a human stubborn heart at its core. Humanity's gift. The outpost was restless. Whispers spread like wildfire that the elders themselves were coming. They could not ignore the truth any longer. The girl they had abandoned still lived, stronger than ever. The soldier stood at the edge of the camp, watching the horizon where silver ships descended. His rifle was slung across his back, but his real weapon was not steel. It was the life standing behind him. The alien girl, once fragile and broken, now walked slowly into the open, her steps unsteady yet proud. Her skin glowed faintly, her eyes brighter than the stars above, each breath a challenge to those who had called her hopeless. The camp gathered in silence, humans and aliens alike, waiting for the storm to break. And soon, the elders appeared, cloaked in flowing garments of light, their faces carved with cold authority. They looked at her with eyes sharp as blades, their voices heavy with judgment. "You should not be alive." The girl trembled, but the soldier placed a steady hand on her shoulder, his voice firm. "Yet she is, and no power of yours can deny it." The elders frowned, their robes stirring in the wind. "She is ours, human, You have stolen what belongs to us." The soldier's eyes blazed, his voice cutting through their arrogance. "She does not belong to you. She belongs to herself, to life, to the will that refused to die." The elders' gazes turned to the girl, waiting for her to break under their shadow. But instead, she raised her chin, her voice trembling yet strong. "You left me to die. You called me worthless. But this human gave me strength when you gave me none." Gasps spread through the crowd. The elders stiffened, shame flickering in their eyes. The girl's voice rose, filled with fire. "I choose my own path now, and I choose life. I choose hope. I choose him."